Hello and welcome to the Aqua Pod, the new podcast by Scottish Swimming. I'm your host, Charlie Harris, and over the coming episodes we will take a journey through the Scottish aquatic community. From diving to swimming, open water to artistic swimming, and water polo to masters, we will cover it all. Join me on a bumper first episode of the Aqua Pod as we look ahead to the British Swimming Championships, which act as a selection meet for this summer's Olympic and Paralympic Games. With nearly 1,000 athletes, over 3,000 swims, multiple coaches, team and support staff, and Olympic and Paralympic qualification at stake amongst other competitions, the British Swimming Championships are the pinnacle of the British swimming calendar. With all 6 days of competition live on the BBC and Channel 4, the nation's eyes will be in London Aquatic Centre, as approximately 60 swimmers and para-swimmers will have their selections confirmed in the days following the Stratford meet. Dreams will be made and others broken as thoughts begin to turn to a summer trip to the French capital for the greatest sporting show in the world. Selection is also at stake for the European Junior Swimming Championships, as the best junior swimmers from across the United Kingdom fight it out for qualification times against their pacey peers. For others, the event provides an opportunity to set new season's bests, personal bests, and maybe even national records, as they aim to become the fastest versions of themselves. With so much on the line, I am delighted to be joined on this episode by Scottish Swimming National Coach Ian Wright as a co-host, as we get the thoughts of a number of coaches going into trials. Starting with University of Stirling High Performance Swimming Coach Josh Williamson. Welcome Josh, and thanks for coming on the Aqua Pod.
Thanks Charlie, good to see you. Good to see Ian as well.
Hi Josh, how you doing?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Not too bad. Bit of a quiet Tuesday start for me. We don't train on a Tuesday morning, so a nice little lie-in for me. But we've got some good stuff going on in the pool later on this afternoon. So looking forward to that.
Awesome. So I guess Josh, for those of us who maybe don't know who you are and what you do, would you be able to give just a little bit of an overview of that and maybe just a bit about your squad at Stirling as well?
Yeah, sure. Swimming coach for the better part of 15 years. Moved up to Stirling just over 6 years ago now. Working with the High Performance 2 group at the university, which is the second tier of the performers groups at the university. 30 odd athletes, give or take, quite a mixed and diverse bunch across both Scottish swimmers, but then also other UK-based athletes, foreign-based athletes, and then we've got a couple of para athletes in the group as well. Quite a spread of abilities. You know, we've got athletes that have broken Scottish records in the past, gone to Commonwealth Games, gone to Paralympic World Championships, Paralympic medalists. It's quite a diverse bunch. Some quite young athletes in there this year as well. Who haven't, they turned 18 during this season, which is a little unusual for us. It's a wide and broad group. Exciting bunch to work with, can be quite lively. Trying to get 30 athletes working in 4 lanes long course occasionally. Takes a little bit of creativity with my assistant, Martin Walton. But no, it's thoroughly enjoyable. And it's a really positive and good group to work with, an improving group. We've moved performance levels on quite a bit since I started. We're looking forward to what we've got coming up in the next few weeks. Hopefully onward to some good success at trials and some other meets that people are targeting coming up.
You mentioned there a little bit about the sort of spread of the athletes from younger to older, Scottish to international, but also the para side as well. How do you kind of go about integrating all those different aspects into the one squad and the one kind of way of training?
Yeah, so para athletes in the group are Abby Kane and Ollie Carter, both Scottish athletes, both swam at the Commie Games in 22 in Birmingham. Both great athletes, really experienced. And, we just have to be creative. Both of them very capable. So it actually makes our lives pretty easy in terms of their ability levels to mix in with the group. It's just finding what works for them, making sure there's good communication with them so that they understand what we're expecting. Both of them are very self-sufficient. Both of them Well, Ollie's just finishing up his masters. Abby's in the midst of her undergrad. So they're balancing their academics along with their swimming and the like. And then more broadly, I guess with the group, it's just a question of, again, being creative. Who needs what? And that's what's been great working with Martin. Martin's come on leaps and bounds since he started on coaching with us off the back of the Commie Games in 22. He was doing a little bit before that, but being able to give him a really good amount of responsibility this year. And we just bounce ideas off one another, find what's going to work in a given afternoon or morning session. Mornings tend to be a little bit quieter. We're trying to bring the group together and work together in a little more of a uniform way. But yeah, certainly in the afternoons, we could have any number of different varieties of sessions going on. And it's just a question of what works, who needs what at certain points, and then jumping in and helping each other out where we need to help one another out. Like I said, it tends to be quite an exciting environment quite a lot of the time when it needs to be. So yeah, and again, getting the athletes to understand what we're having to manage as coaches. So understanding their responsibilities, and certain afternoons, there are certain athletes that may well just have to pretty much look after themselves. But then on another afternoon later on in the week, it will be, the flip, and the ones that have had a little bit closer attention on the Tuesday afternoon, let's say, are the ones that maybe just have to look after themselves and be a little more self-sufficient on the Thursday. So, again, great communications, I think the key to trying to make it work.
We've got a big show coming up.
Absolutely.
Just around the corner. The thing that I guess most people have been training for with intent so far this season, the British Champs, which also includes the Olympic trials and Paralympic trials, and then subsequently the big deal itself later in the summer. So
yeah.
You've given a bit of an overview, group, but is there anyone we should be particularly looking out for at the Champs? Who you're picking out as the highlights, and who might be pushing for positions?
I mean, from a Sterling perspective, more broadly, clearly Duncan and Kathleen coming away from Tokyo with gold medals. They're looking to make the team again and trying to push on for some medal success. So competitive now, though. There's a lot of competition on those events that they're in. So trying to get things ready. But wider than that, there's a fair few others in the HP1 group that are targeting making the Olympic team. Likes of Kay Shanahan, Kiana McInnes, Jack McMillan. So, and that's just a couple of them. There's more than that have got eyes on trying to make that team. But as I said, it's going to be really challenging. I think from where we were in what should have been 2020 ended up being 21, performance levels have improved within British swimming. And then again, when you look more broadly, when you get down into the summer, the likes of Leon Marchand wasn't around in 2021. So, and there's any number of other athletes in the same boat. Popovici was only just on the scene and hunting people down in that 200 free final. So again, I think the challenge across the world has got a lot tougher. From a HP2 point of view, I had a little scan through before coming on here. We've got, I think, 9 people ranked to make a B final, 5 people ranked to make an A final events where we're ranked to have those. And, those are some of the things that we'll do as a group going into it, is look at where we're ranked on the way in, how many maybe B finalists, A finalists, how many top 20s, how many top 10s we've got ranked on the draft program, and just look to see if we can outperform those positions. Clearly, all of the athletes that are going from our group and, any of the groups have got their own individual goals. But again, to try and keep what is quite a big group across the week, trying to keep a sense of momentum and a sense of purpose more broadly as well. We'll try and target getting those top 20, top 16 finishes and on beyond that. I guess some of the names to pick out in the group are Roy Dixon. He's been coming on leaps and bounds. He started with us 5 years ago. In the last couple of years, has really started to move his performance levels on. So he's ranked to make A finals in both the 100 and the 200 breast. Quite excited to see how he goes. And then again, there's a few others in the group. Jamie Robertson, Scottish supported athlete, Andrew Patoli. They're again ranked to make A finals or be in that top end. So for us as a group, that's where we're trying to push and see if we can translate or convert some of those people that are ranked as B finalists into A finalists. We've got a good group of medley lads as well. So we've got quite a few of them ranked on the 400 medley to make finals. And again, they'll be competitive with themselves, really competitive with themselves to try and push on and take a step on. So you can end up top dog within the group. And then a couple of others, as I said, I've already mentioned Abby and Ollie. They're there with Paralympics in mind. Again, it's going to be quite challenging for both of them, but they've got an opportunity. And I know that they're going to be pushing and challenging to really get as close to the teams they can and possibly scrape onto that team on a relay or individually. Unfortunately, for some of them, the events just haven't quite panned out in terms of what events have been selected for Paris and where their strengths really lie. But that's not to say that they're taking a step back because of that. And I guess then the last thing is, as I said, I mentioned we've got a couple of guys in the group that only turned 18 at the beginning of 24. So they're still eligible for junior meets. So, you know, both Callum Melville and Lucas Brown are going to go there, be eligible for junior finals with a view to European juniors and qualifying for some of those junior teams that are then going to happen later on in the summer as well.
I was just going to say, Josh, quite often when people talk about British Championships, they refer to it as trials, you know, whether that's Olympic or Paralympic. But that clearly isn't the case for the vast majority of swimmers that are there. What does it mean, do you think, to your swimmers that won't end up on a team, but see this meet as maybe the sort of target meet for the season?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly that. It's Olympic trials. It only happens every 4 years. So certainly where we get athletes in for normally a 4-year degree, this is only going to happen for a lot of them once in their time while they're at university. So quite often, irrespective of whether it happens in the first year of study or the last year of study, it's a target because of the very fact that it does only happen every 4 years. So there probably is that little bit more emphasis on it. There's an excitement around it. There's an excitement around the fact that, you know, they train day to day with some of those athletes who are targeting making teams, be that the Olympic team, Paralympic team, or as I said, some of those junior teams. So they're excited to see their teammates compete and see it in person and be around them, support them in whichever way they can, whether that's just being up in the stand during finals and cheering them on, or, you know, being able to have a little, you know, almost pep talk with them in and around in the prep environment, you know, bouncing off one another, getting a little bit competitive, as I said. So I think there is that general excitement around the team. You know, we're going to travel down, the vast majority of the team are going to travel down on the Sunday before trials on a bus. So they're working, so they're all going to travel together. You know, it's going to be a long old journey. So again, I'm sure there'll be some good chat on the buses, some bonds being made for the week to help support one another through it. But I think within HP2 as well, like I said, we try and structure it in such a way that we're going to go there with the ambition to outperform the meet, outperform our competition where we can. You know, targeting season's best, personal best, but finishing further up the rankings than what we are going into the meet. It's pretty basic. It's not exactly, you know, rewriting a whole load of stuff or anything like that, but it's something that we've done at previous meets and giving those guys an understanding of where their performance is shifting, where they're tracking. Because again, if you're in year one and you're coming in, it can be quite a big environment, it can be quite a daunting environment, but understanding how you're going to move through not just this season, but next season, then on towards the end of your time in the uni and in the group. We've got two athletes that are going this time round where this will be their last competition. You know, they're stopping after they've raced down in London. So again, they've actually been great to have in the group. Charlie Poole and Tony Joe, give them a little shout out because, you know, the way that they've approached this season where they know that they've got this target, that they're, you know, that will be them done at Stirling with their swimming. The way they've approached it and attacked it, neither of them are studying. They're both just working this year and continuing to swim. With a view that once they've finished at trials, they're going to go on into the working world. But yeah, that level of sort of professionalism, that experience that they have of being a University of Stirling student and athlete and swimmer, and what that means to be a member of that and part of the team, and kind of, again, instill that in some of the younger athletes in the group, and what we expect. Been superb this year, and again, it's quite exciting to see how they go when we get down to trials as well.
Given what you've said there, and the nature of it being a once in a 4-year event and heightened expectations and interest, is there a case from a coaching point of view of trying to treat it as just another meet? It's the same process and the same job to be done, or do you actually play up to the extra heightened awareness around the meet and the interest in it?
I think from my personal point of view, I try and treat it as much as I can as another meet, because fundamentally it's a 10-lane, 50-meter pool, with some lane ropes and a set of flags and starting blocks at each end, and if you can make sure the athletes understand that, they can focus on their processes, they can go there with the approach they need, I think, and hopefully the level of preparedness that they need. But you can't forget about the fact that it's a big environment in London. Some of them haven't raced there. There's going to be a different atmosphere for sure, in the pool and around the poolside. So there are certain scenarios and certain bits that you've got to get them to understand and discuss with them, so that again that they're prepared for that. But again, stripping it back down, once you've discussed those bits, reminding them of what are the key components of your race, what are going to be the 1, 2, 3 really important pieces that you need to focus on when you're getting behind the block, taking a big deep breath, letting your shoulders relax, and then going and getting the job done, is kind of how I want them to approach it. And they're all individuals, they're all different, so again there's quite a lot of nuance around that and how you convey that to each of the athletes. But yeah, they've got to understand that, like I said, it's a swim meet, and it's a swim meet that's just the same as where a lot of them went to the Dolan Baths in January and raced at the West Districts. It's to a degree the same sort of processes, but they're more prepared, they're more ready, they're ready to swim hopefully the fastest that they've ever swam when they get to the meet. So expectation levels inherently are higher, and because of that, we just need to make sure that they're ready to stay focused and get that job done.
Do you think does that make the coach's job, yourself or any coach really, think about it in a general sense, does that make the coach's job harder, or is it easier because they are ready and they all know what they're about at this meet?
Yeah, well, I guess we're about to find out, hey. So if we haven't quite got it right, we're about to find out. Or equally, if we have got it right, we're going to find out. I don't know. For me, I think hopefully, if they've done the work, and you've done your work as the coach, it should make it easier. If you've done the groundwork, I guess it's almost like the exam, right? If you've done all the study, you've done the groundwork, you've done your revision. That's the word. It was failing me there. You've done your revision, then you're going to be ready for the exam. And whatever question gets thrown at you, you're going to be able to answer, and you'll be able to move through the environment as you need to. And some of those questions in a swim sense might well be like the scoreboard goes down and you have to wait an extra 10 minutes. Like, how are you dealing with those kind of scenarios? You wake up late and you've got to get to the pool, and now your preparation's a little more compressed before your race. Like, how are you dealing with that? So trying to ensure that we've talked through some of those things, so that they've got that experience and understand how they need to navigate that, who they need to communicate with when they get to the environment, to ensure that they're getting what they need done, what's the priority, what's important. But yeah, I guess to answer your question, it should make it a little easier, but inherently it probably does get a little bit harder because of those expectation levels, and just making sure that the athlete's being open and honest with you about what they're expecting when they get there, so that you can prepare them for it, and you can just help move them through the environment where you need to.
Well, I was just going to try and turn attention to Paris itself in the summer, and taking it away from the Sterling context, but just your kind of feelings about the Olympic Games, Paralympic Games. What does that mean to you? And what is there anything you're particularly looking forward to watching or seeing or coaching in Paris later this year?
Coaching will be incredible. I don't think I'm gonna get that, but hopefully within our group we will have a couple of athletes there. We've got a couple of foreign athletes, Salvador, who represents Angola, and Paige, who represents Zimbabwe, both targeting making their teams, but it's going to be tough. So they've got some target meets coming up around the same time as trials to get there. But yeah, I don't think unfortunately I'm going to make it all the way there to be coaching. But I guess more broadly away from Sterling, I think it's going to be really fast. I think it's going to be really fast at that meet. Everything suggests, much as we had a Worlds at the beginning of this year that kind of was a little bit odd, certainly looking at the results from Worlds last summer and the summer before, then I think the signs are that things are really starting to shift on. There's some great events to get excited about on the women's side of things like the 400 free, 200 free, look like they're going to be incredible races. Summer McIntosh more broadly is really a superstar, if not already, certainly in the making. And then when you look at the men's side of things, again, you can't help but just be drawn towards Leon Marchand in the home games, breaking Phelps's record last summer on the 400 medley, swimming unbelievable at college level and more widely in long course meters. You've got to imagine that it's going to be a pretty special sight to see, watching him race with the home crowd and everything else. So I know that's tough because it's some events that, from a British and from a Sterling point of view, that he's going to be racing in. So trying to take him down in those events is going to be a massive, massive challenge, but a really exciting prospect to watch. I don't know about you. What are you thinking, Ray? Is there anything that I've missed there that you were excited about?
Well, you've obviously covered some good ones, but I think there's also some fascinating races in prospect in the men's freestyle across the board there. Even the 50, the way that panned out in Doha a few weeks ago with the newcomer Bukov coming into the mix there. And then they got the 100 where the world record's already gone down this season. Can more people go 46 point? Could be 46 to make a medal this year.
Yeah, that'd be incredible.
And of course, there's the British challenge in both the 100 and the 200, including the relays that we hope some people from Stirling and Scotland will be actually involved in as well. So that's going to be interesting. And then everyone's talking also about the male distance races coming up, because the field for those is now looking really stacked. And even just getting through the heats, that was something that was really interesting. Doha, watching the heats of the 800 and the 1500, just to see the tactics of trying to get through, and one or two people got that wrong and missed out on a final. So that's something that I'll be certainly piquing my interest when we're watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the fact that the distance events have moved on in the way that they have the last few years makes that event fascinating, because the different ways that they race the event. I was fortunate enough to be in Budapest when Paltrinieri kind of pulled the rug from under Bobby Fink's feet by going out super hard and just gapping him, and he just couldn't get back to him. But equally put that world record on notice. And then, of course, at Worlds last summer, Hafnui and was it Short, and a few of the others, again, swam it in a different way and again put world records on notice in the 400, the 8, the 15. So it's exciting times on those events. How many world records do you think we can expect to see across all of the swimming, do you reckon, Ian?
Well, I haven't added up an exact number, but I think this could be a games where you see quite a few of the world records go down. There's some that are maybe ready to be taken down. Some are a bit far off, but Marchand could take that 400 IM record further.
Yeah.
On the women's side, Titmus, Ledecky are going to be in some battles. McIntosh has already picked up a couple of world records. Is she going to move that on further as well? She could, in theory, she could be eyeing 4 or 5 world records just on her own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess always those relay world records are kind of on notice as well. And I guess from a British perspective, seeing if whatever the team looks like for the 4x2, having got so close to it at the last Olympics, it'd be good to see him get close again this coming one, hey?
And sometimes you get those records coming in the semi-finals, where there's maybe not quite the pressure that there's someone swims really fast, and then in the final it gets a little bit more nerve-wracking, or there's just a different tactic goes on, and people are kind of expecting another world record, but it doesn't quite come, because at that point it's maybe more about just who gets their hand on the wall first rather than what the time is.
Sure, well, it's a bit like the Chinese lad that broke the world record on the 100 free did it on the lead off the relay, right? A little bit less pressure, and then it was quick in the other bits, but he wasn't really that close throughout the rest of the individual swims. So yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. No, I mean, a really exciting and interesting games coming up, particularly after Tokyo, which was great swimming, but it was with COVID, it was all the restrictions around that. It just kind of dampened it a little bit, didn't it? So this one will be back to the full stadium, all the excitement, all the razzmatazz. Should be amazing.
Yeah, you got to believe the crowd are going to bring quite a lot to it, help lift some performance levels.
Absolutely.
I think you backed out the question a bit there, Righty, though, to be fair. Do you have a number that you think will fall in the summer?
Well, I could create one, but I need to go through it and look at it event by event, and then say, right, that'll be the number.
Okay. We'll let you off for that one just now then, but maybe for
you can hold them to account
on
you can hold them to account on another podcast, Charlie.
Yeah, that's it. 100%. I'll definitely do that.
I need to do my research.
Well, thanks, Josh. It's been a really interesting conversation, actually, from perspective of your squad, of Stirling, and then just wider, obviously, as well at the end there. Do you have any kind of final thoughts before we head off about the importance of British Champs and maybe your kind of standout moments or memories from that event?
It's a funny one in that for me, like standout kind of things, I was really fortunate back in 2012 to put someone on an Olympic team, which was an amazing experience for me and really kickstarted my coaching career. I was still quite early on in my coaching career at that point. But then I missed 2016 because it was the birth of my second child. So I wasn't around for trials in 2016. And then due to all the COVID restrictions in 2020, 2021, just didn't really make a lot of sense for me to be there when Steve and Brad were already going to be there, and it was such a small group of athletes that were going. So this is actually only really my second Olympic trials as a coach for one reason or another. So quite excited to get back down there from that point of view. So obviously, clearly 2012 was a massive highlight for me, but I think other highlights, I was there in 2015. It wasn't Olympic trials, but back in London in 2015 when Pete broke the world record. I think it was the first time. Ian might correct me on that one. I think that was the first time that he broke the world record. Again, incredible to see, incredible to watch. I'm not sure we'll see a world record in a couple of weeks' time. It'd be incredible if we did, obviously. But no, it's just that, as we've already talked about here, it's kind of the pinnacle, certainly from a domestic point of view, it's the pinnacle of what we do in the UK is an Olympic trials. Yeah, we've been fortunate and had European Championships and some other major meets, but from a more consistent and regular basis, it's the pinnacle, and it's, I guess, the pinnacle for a lot of us as coaches is to go to Olympic trials and see your athletes perform. And again, the desire is always to see your athletes perform at their very best when it matters. So, that's what's exciting to come. See how we get on with that. But certainly everything that we've been doing in the lead up to this point has been really positive, and they're looking good. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for what's to come in a couple of weeks, and excited for University of Stirling as a whole, because again, it's looking really positive, I think, across both the groups.
Definitely lots to be excited about, Josh. Thanks again for coming on, and really appreciate your time.
Not at all. Thanks for having me. Hope you're both well. Look after yourselves. Yeah, catch you, I'm sure, if not before, but down in London.
Definitely.
Yes, Josh.
We now welcome City of Glasgow head coach Danielle Brayson and University of Aberdeen performance head coach Patrick Miley onto the Aqua Pod. Welcome both.
Thanks. Thanks.
No worries at all. I guess starting with Patrick, a lot of people will know you in the kind of Scottish aquatic community, the same with you, Danielle. But do you want to just give a sort of brief intro to who you are and kind of what you do at your respective kind of in your respective jobs?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Patrick Miley. I'm the high performance coach at the University of Aberdeen Performance Swimming program up here in Aberdeen, connected obviously directly with the university. I'm employed by the university, and we have a pathway program which basically embraces member clubs from the city that feed into the early squad, the performance development squad, led by Jen Davis, into the performance squad, led by Gregor McMillan, and then the high performance and senior performance program, which is coordinated between Gregor and myself, but led by myself. And it's developing, it's growing, it's changing. It's invested by many parties, including Scottish Swimming, which we're really grateful for. And yeah, I think the future's looking quite bright at the moment.
And you, Danielle, as well.
Yeah, so I am the current head coach at City of Glasgow. I think I've got like, I don't know how many days I've got left. How many days? Oh, wait, what we've got left in March? Like 9 days plus another. Like I've got less than a month left. But yeah, my current role is I'm the head coach at City of Glasgow swim team. Glasgow's slightly different to Aberdeen in that it's a club program that runs from kids accessing from learn to swim all the way through to kind of the university pathway. So that's where, and we're probably one of the very few clubs in Scotland that are like that. Maybe it's further afield in Scotland actually, because it's just, you know, the landscape's changed so much in the last 10 years. So yeah, my job is I coach I have my own squad at Glasgow, and then I support the other squads, with my real favourite squad being the foundation squad, which is our entry-level squad, just because they're the cutest kids and they just love swimming the most. They don't moan. They race down the poolside to see their pals, to see you, and they kind of lose that when they get to like 13 and 14. It's not cool enough to love swimming, is it? So yeah, that's my role.
You obviously mentioned there, Danielle, that you're coming to the end of your time at Glasgow. How are you kind of feeling about that? You've obviously been there quite a while, and obviously working with Wright as well for quite a bit of it. What's the sort of emotions at this point?
It's mixed, I suppose. I think, in all honesty, I've really missed working with Ian. I have, like the last 2 years. Has it been 2 years? Is that how long it's been? Or has it been longer?
Nearly 2 years.
Nearly 2 years. It feels longer. I've missed that, having that kind of that working like time with Ian. Do you know what I mean? I really enjoyed like the 5 years that I had with you. 5.5 years, was it? Really not great. Like
6 years.
6 years. I'm doing really well on it. But I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I missed that. And I believe the job that I had before when Ian was there was the best job in swimming. Honestly, I believe that was of all of my swimming jobs that I've had, that was my favourite one. So mixed, excited, new challenge, different type of job. Sad to be leaving Glasgow because I love the club and I love Glasgow as well, just as a city. So yeah, mixed emotions. Mixed.
On that front, Danielle, is there any particular highlights from your time at Glasgow that you can share with us, a wee story or two, or a few things that really stand out?
There's been so many things. There's obviously like the things like the performance things where we've had kids make in their first international junior team and then go and do really well and win medals, and that's been excellent, you know, for them and the club. But then there's been other things as well, like, you know, won the mini league, when we won the age groups for the first time ever, and then when we won it again, you know, bringing people in. I think probably my favourite time was like when it was Ian, me, Lewis, Heather, like that kind of group of coaches at Glasgow. That was probably my favourite time, when lots of really good things were happening, and my memory's not that great, so I can't remember anything specific. We'll probably be like half an hour and I'll be like, oh, I've got something for you now, remember? So bad.
Well, yeah, no, that's good. I mean, a lot of memories there myself that you're evoking as well, and it was such a good period for me as well. Really enjoyed that time at Glasgow and working with yourself and the other staff and seeing the club grow. I think I mean, it was affected everyone, didn't it, in many different ways and bad ways. But we're on such a good momentum running into COVID, and then that hit Glasgow really hard. I think as a not just from a swimming point of view, from the social point of view. I think it just cost the sport a lot. Any reflections on that from yourself?
Yeah, I think we were I mean, me and Heather were chatting about this morning, like about when the last time the trails were in London, and the three of us were all getting ready to go. We had there was so many swimmers from Glasgow had qualifying times to go, and it was really going to be geared up to be something quite special for us. And that year was really going to be the first year that we won the age group, so the club was really on that upward trajectory. And then we were at swimming. I remember it was a Tuesday night and the kids were like, do you think snacks will still happen? And I was like, of course it'll still happen. That's not going to stop. It's the age groups, of course it will. And then come off the pool side and the pool manager's like, Danielle, the pools are closing tonight. Don't know when they're reopening. I'm like, shut up. That's not real. It's not happening. And then the Thursday, the whole country kind of closed. But after that, I think for some people, it was a really good opportunity for them to reset and reflect and then get their head down and actually appreciate what swimming give them. For some people, it had the opposite and it was maybe a stretch too far coming back. So I think it was mixed. But for Glasgow, it did have, an impact. A lot of people, moved on from the sport after that. And obviously, like every other programme, Patrick, I'm sure you had the challenges of the return and what that looked like and fitting everybody else in. We had less pools open. I think Go Cross at one point was the only pool in Glasgow that opened out of 11 pools. So the resources weren't quite the same either. And then coaches had just time to reflect during COVID whether coaching was what they wanted to do anymore. So some people moved on, they did different things and the team changed, didn't it? A couple of people moved on to do different things, and that was hard as well because I felt like we had, as a full team, we had built this team. Oh, sorry, and then that was changing. So yeah.
Patrick, what about yourself? How did all that time affect Aberdeen and your program?
Yeah, it's interesting, Daniel. Thanks for that because it does make you reflect. We didn't use Zoom or sort of virtual reality in those days, did we? It suddenly became a huge part of our lives and is still there. It's here right now as we're doing this. So that was a huge change. I think the younger swimmers really struggle with the emotional disconnect of it and the sense of belonging. I think we also learned a lot about development with not swimming so much and perhaps, dare I say it, some younger swimmers growing more than perhaps we're used to seeing them grow, getting more sleep, having different inputs. I do think that there was a lot of learning that we're still finding out about. But it has been a price in that we've still got to keep fixing the direction in which we're going in swimming, and it's definitely happening. But it's a slow burn, I think. It was a really challenging time with everybody on furlough out cycling. I was heading into training coaching each day. I was enjoying it, but questioning where everybody else was. It was a very strange time, very busy. And I feel for the generation that got stuck in the middle of it. There's an age group that really, I do feel missed out, and it's a sad fact. But the next generation are impacted differently. It's like, where are their peers or the people that are normally ahead they look at, and there's a bit of a gap missing for them. So we're realigning so much at the moment.
It's the skills, isn't it, that they've not the swimming, obviously the opportunity. We have this conversation quite a lot with people say, oh, COVID took so much from them, and it did, but what it's took from some of them, they never really had the opportunity to be those young swimmers that every time they touched the water they PB'd, you know, they could miss training for a week and they'd have grown half a foot and then smashed their times. And, you know, just through growth and maturation, they were improving. And they missed a lot of that. And then they came back to swimming and had that like improvement. And then that normal kind of, you know, improvement was then a little bit harder to kind of come by. And they just never got the opportunity to develop the skills, how to be disappointed and then how to deal with that. So I think some of them, yes, they've missed a lot of opportunities, but they've not had the chance to build skills that they need.
Yeah. There's I'm not sure if this is the right thing to say, but there's almost a cultural change within clubs as well, because we kind of left swimming pre-pandemic with parents poolside, parents involved, parents connected. And then there was a huge period of time where there was that disconnect, not just for the swimmers, but for the whole families. And I think some families have come back not knowing what it used to be like. And therefore, redeveloping that culture is probably a big job of work for all of us to do, to draw the good people back in that always we rely on to keep clubs going. And of course, everyone through the pandemic and the recent events as well, financial events, you know, it's not financially people are challenged, and it's the rest of the world has changed too. So to expect volunteers to do perhaps what we used to have is much more difficult, and for right reasons. And it's kind of a wrestling match. Sounds really negative, because I'm sensing right now things are changing in the opposite direction. It's going really, really well, certainly up in the northeast, and I suspect the rest of Scotland is the same. But we've got to be patient. We've got to keep building that progression of change.
Well, I'm just hoping lightning doesn't strike twice. I don't know if you remember, Patrick. We're here today doing this podcast with the trials for the Olympics and Paralympics just around the corner. But back in 2020, before, when Danielle was referring, when it all just shut down, just before that, we'd recorded a podcast about the Olympic trials. Me, you, Alan, Lynn, Steve, Chris, we sat together, all of us, and we talked about the Olympics and what was going to happen, and then that podcast is like still filed in someone's computer somewhere. It's never been seen. So
are we tempting fate here?
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, Ian, by the way, I've been hit by lightning 3 times, so it does happen.
Yeah, well, I can believe that. Well, why don't you tell us about that? Because you did. I mean, you're a full-time coach now, but you did do another job which led probably to those lightning strikes, didn't you?
Yeah.
And how it's just. I was really going to ask that anyway. How would you find the difference between when you had to combine the two things and now you're just focused on coaching?
Oh, wow. I remember Bill Finesse at the Olympics once saying, "I don't know how you do this," because obviously we're at the Olympics and he knew I flew helicopters and he was a full-time coach. And at that time, I didn't realize, but my correct answer should have been, "I don't know either." And I didn't know. To be frank, the involvement of full-time professional coaching has so much more to it than just coaching and volunteering and helping in clubs. There's so much more involved. There's so much more detail and capacity to draw you into things that are associated with swimming, but not directly on the pool deck. So I've had to adjust and change and get used to that as much as anyone else. I've always felt I come at swimming from a different angle anyway, because of having such an odd background from the military through to flying. But it's so incredibly rewarding working with young people. The privilege of it is huge. I guess when I coached originally and had other career work to do, I could switch off and switch on and switch off and switch on, which was quite useful, because you wouldn't go home just thinking about the one thing. But it was a balancing act for sure. I was younger, so that was probably easier too. And actually being hit by lightning was nothing to do with swim coaching, I hope, but that was just misfortune. Oh no, it was good luck actually, because the last time the lightning strike did knock off 2 feet off 2 of the main rotor blades, so we were very lucky to actually survive. So I guess in a way, when I finished flying, I must admit my children actually turned around and said, Hannah, she did quite tearful, said, "We're really glad you've stopped." So all those years they were nervously worried about my welfare, and I probably should have known that, but because it was my job, I just did my job and kept going. Some aspects of that I quite miss because of the switching on, switching off. Nowadays, I don't switch off at all, so I've still got a lot to learn. But yeah, I don't know if you've noticed a change either, Ian, because you knew me in both both worlds.
Yeah, well, no, thanks, Patrick. It's really good insight into that world. I mean, I guess I was different, kind of a full-time coach all of my adult life, apart from being a student. But I know very much like you said that it's hard to switch off. It's very easy to be immersed in it all the time, and if you don't find the time to do different things and switch off, it can affect you in negative ways, I think, and probably suffered from that in certain ways over the years. And it's not easy to find that balance, even now in a different role where I'm not on deck all the time, but I'm still thinking about swimming all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of an addiction, a cross between an addiction and a disease, really, isn't it? Let's be honest about it.
Yeah. Danielle, how do you find that? I've always thought you're quite good at switching from the coaching role into a more relaxed life, or different.
Loads of programs that I watch, Ian, like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Real Housewives of Miami, Griselda. I get fully engrossed in these programs that I watch. And
do you watch Married at First Sight, Danielle?
I don't watch that. I don't stoop that low, Patrick. I don't.
I'll say no more.
Little trash. I go like super trash. No,
especially as you just got married a few weeks ago.
No, that's terrible. I don't just sit and watch daytime telly or trashy TV. No, I tutor as well on the side, so that gives us kind of something else, a different challenge. So I do teaching qualifications and coaching qualifications, so that's quite good. And I'm a regular kind of tutor, so I have courses running quite often, and I enjoy it, but it's also good to do something swimming related, but not quite, club swimming related, something different. So it can kind of just switch to something else. Or just planning things, I've got really good friends that forces to plan things outside of swimming. So we've got other things on rather than it just being purely swimming orientated all the time.
That's great, Danielle. And I guess we're obviously chatting a little bit there about the effect that COVID has had on some of the swimmers and other impacts, like recent kind of financial things going on as well. This British Championships that's coming up will be the first kind of non-COVID impacted Olympic/Paralympic trials since Rio 2016. What do you think that's going to mean to swimmers that are taking part in it, and how big a deal is it for them?
It's going to be massive, isn't it? It's going to be huge. I think the even simple things like being in London in the theatre that it is, but also with a crowd, that's going to be really impactful for the less experienced and motivational for everybody. I think it's going to be pretty remarkable. And of course, it's combined with the Paralympic selections as well. So, I think it's going to be really exciting. I think the standards and the levels are going to elevate a lot from times going in to times coming out of the trials.
Danielle, what are you looking forward to?
I think I'm looking forward to being in London. Like Patrick, you said, like it's like a theatre. I think it being there, the occasion, of where it is makes it more special, slightly more special than it being in Hunsford or Glasgow, or so it being in London does bring, I suppose, an extra something to it. I think the integrated trials is really good, purely just from, Patrick, you'll be the same. You'll have the guys that are looking to qualify for the Paralympics too as well. And I think that when they're separate, those trials, it can be quite difficult, you know, because they train together all the time, you know, like Tony and Phil train with Tom and Connor and whoever else in Aberdeen, and then they go at their trials separately. But really, they rely on that kind of network that they've got with each other to get them through some of the really good times or the not so good times. So I'm looking forward to that for our kind of para swimmers to have that support, but also the rest of the team being there as well, to support each other. I think that just from a Glasgow perspective, that'll be really good. And then just watching people qualify. Obviously, we've got close kind of links with some of the kids that, well, they're not kids, but the swimmers that are looking to make the team in the summer. Either we've been part of their journey or we've just watched them over the years, you know, just it'll be so good to see them make the team. And I say see them make the team because I'm confident that they will.
So just drilling down a little bit onto your the swimmers that you'll be working with, and particularly in the para side of the event. Danielle, you've got Louis Lawler, I think, who's going to be pushing for. He's been on the World Championships before, been to the Paralympics before, so I'll let you speak about him in a minute. And Patrick, I think you've got 3 para swimmers down there with Jack, Tony, Faye. So to both of you, do you want to just expand a little bit on what they're looking forward to and what your aspirations for them are and how that's all been going?
Yeah, so we've got Louis and Gavin heading down. So Louis has obviously, like Ian said, he's got a history of some of the bigger events. He's quite an experienced, I would say, para athlete. He's looking for really what he wants is to qualify in that relay team. That's what Louis wants to do. He wants to be in that 4x1 mixed free relay team. But things been focusing on the qualifying in the 100 back and then that 100 free as well. So yeah, things have been going all right. But you know, I think it'll be a solid effort. I suppose what's happening in para swimming is exciting, so that there's more people coming through and it's becoming more competitive. So there's a couple of S14s coming through that will challenge some of the kind of norms or the normal selections, which I think is good for the sport.
Thanks. And yourself, Patrick?
Yeah, I do. I really appreciate the honesty there. It's such a tough environment swimming at any time, but when people are coming around another cycle, we can't help but reflect on the previous, and it's impossible to own everything that each swimmer has. And I think for me, the para swimming is, I'm less experienced than you, Danielle. You've got a lot more, and I'm learning every day. There's so much more to it than I ever recognized before. There's so much more. I think there's so much more opportunity in the nation, to be truthful, that you know, a lot of families, maybe with young children with, let's say, minimal impairments, really need to be encouraged to take it up, because the opportunities are massive, and the community is second to none. I love the swimming community, but there's something in the para swimming community that I had not had the privilege of working with before that I'm having my eyes open to. It's extraordinary. But the swimmers I've got, Faye has come into para swimming late because of a car accident, and has, in my opinion, has some advantages, having had swimming experience before without impairment, and now developing with it. It is an advantage, and it's something that she's really good at taking advantage of, and she's probably the gutsiest racer that I've ever coached. She'll train hard and train well, but she steps up to a different level when it comes to competition, and the more pressure, you'll know the pressure's on because she'll tell you, but actually when she gets in the pool, I've got dogs, and she reminds me of, we had dogs recently that chased a load of chickens and killed them, and it was impossible for me to get them off the chickens. But not that Faye's like a dog chasing chickens, but she is really tough and she will not let go. So I have a huge amount of confidence in what she can do this season and beyond, because she's already talking about the next quad 4 years through to 2028. And Tony is with us, and of course Tony before is a Paralympic medalist in the 400 free, and she's really good to work with. She's they both have very similar events: 400 free, 200 IM, 100 fly, and they're quite different characters in one sense, but they're really close in another. It's quite an interesting dynamic to watch, and they bounce off each other, and then every now and then you know, it's like boxers in a ring, you can see, and then they come back and they're best of friends. So that can be a real advantage in training and in competition, but you have to kind of be sensitive to it as well. So you've got experience and lack of experience and different drives. Is fascinating. And Jack, he kind of grinds out his work and does. He's busy at college and he's working hard at that. He's had a few sort of illnesses throughout the season, so a bit like you said, Danielle, I question some things, but what I do know, and he's done it. He did it last year. It can be the last swim of the season that Jack will pull out the trump card. So I know what Jack's like, and I'm not expecting it. I'm hoping for it, but I think he might surprise a few people. And he's a delight to work with as well. And exactly what you said, Daniel, they're all integrated in training sense in our program, and that works really, really well. Tegan Davis as well is working with Gregor, and he does a brilliant job with the power swimmers that he's had through his hands over the years. So yeah, it's quite special. In amongst it, I've got Tom Bealey, so that's quite an interesting one. You've got somebody trying to push at the senior level, and then you've got the power swimmers. Yeah, it makes for a busy day, Danielle. Looking forward to a break maybe in September.
Patrick, I don't know if you maybe want to talk a bit more about Tom as well. Obviously, he's ranked fastest going into the 200 fly, but the kind of qualifying time is quite a bit faster than his personal best. How is it kind of approaching a situation like that where you're the fastest, but you're still going to need to drop quite a bit of time?
Yeah, 2.03 seconds, I think it is we're looking for. I love working with Tom, and at some point all our journeys end, and I'm going to miss it because he's sort of the maverick in Top Gun. Everything's different. He came as a 17-year-old, and we kind of ended up going from, I can't remember, 203, 205, 205 to 159, and I was really excited. He'd been to European Juniors, and then he advised me he was heading away to Plymouth for the studies, the topic he needed to do. And now he's back, so it's brilliant from that perspective. When I first had him as a swimmer, he was so ill for 3 or 4 months of the season. He could barely swim, but then qualified for European Juniors, and I learned a lot from coaching him. I learned that his natural physicality and his ability to do things, his ability to hurt in training is something I've not seen before. We will do a set of 1050s of 3 minutes, and nobody can match, you know, maybe a 0.4, 0.6 second drop between the first and last effort. And you can see how painful it is. You can really see it. So I think that adds to this fragility I've heard with the people that work with him. You're saying, oh, it's fragile. He's not fragile at all, but he pushes so hard. It makes fragility at the edge of the work that you're doing. 157.0. On paper, it needs to be a 154.97, I think it is. We've worked a lot on the underwaters, maybe not as much as I would like to, but he's particularly good at it anyway, so I think some edge will be on that. Also, I do a lot of work on stroke rate. Heavens, everyone should go to sleep now because Patrick's talking about stroke rate, but he responds to that really, really well. We've been doing some sets of 150s, so where he needs to target being at 124.8 or thereabouts at 150 to be able to even go close to sub 150, 155, 155. So he's managing comfortably 127s, 128s, and we're through the taper, keeping an eye on that one. He's got a slightly longer stroke now, so we have to balance that out. A lot of people have said, you know, you need speed for the 200 fly, and I couldn't agree more. But when Tom applies speed historically, he revs and slips the water. So his 100 time really is an anomaly based on his 200 time. And I think we've played with that enough for him to be confident with how to run his speed. And as I say, he's just a joy to work with. He's so different. It's quite a juggling match in the pool these days. Sorry, I've kind of gone on a lot there.
No, not at all.
Oh, that's good, Patrick. I think maybe then just turning our attention before we wrap up to the big show in the summer in Paris. On a more general side of things, and what you're looking forward to there, it's going to be an amazing spectacle. I'm sure it's going to be a super fast swim meet, both at the Olympics and the Paralympics. Is there anything in particular that either of you are looking forward to see happen from anyone across the world, not just the GB squad? Danielle, what about yourself?
I mean, I'm looking forward to just watching really good swimming. Like, I love the Olympics, do you know what I mean? But I think it's more, for me, it's about when you know the person that's in the water and watching them, and how that all pans out for them. That's what I probably enjoy the most, because you just feel a little bit more linked to it, like watching them when you've seen them from, even if they've not been part of the club that you've coached at, but you've seen them since they were like 14, 15 and do different things. So just seeing how some of those guys get on. And then with the Paralympics, I've been linked more closely with that team in the last kind of couple of years. So particularly some of those younger ones that have just come through, just seeing how they, pending what happens in just over a week, seeing how those guys get on, is pretty exciting as well. I don't want to say oh, this person, because you never know what happens. You can't you know what I mean? I don't want to say oh, well, when Ian goes and wins the 200 fly and then he doesn't make it at the trials, do you know what I mean? That'd be a bit of a shyster, wouldn't it? So I don't want to be dead. Anything can happen. But I just want to watch fast swimming. That's what I want to watch.
Really.
Patrick, what do you think?
Yeah, I genuinely feel excited about things that I've watched many Olympics. I remember I was only just married, and there was 84 Olympics, and I was trying to record races and each Olympic since. So I think my wife's got used to it by now. But for me, obviously the 400 I'm really curious about that on the female side with some of McIntosh and people like that. I have to say, down in Edinburgh just recently, watching Katie Shanahan race all those races, race on top of everything and race so solidly, that's, to me, apologies, Ian, because I know you coached her, a different Katie, a Katie on a mission. And I think, to be fair, I think the Sterling group all projected that, and that was impressive beyond every other program from my point of view. So I'm excited for the 400 medley as an event. My money's on Katie, to be truthful, for doing something very special. And obviously, in my mind, in the background, I've got Hannah's history and thinking about that too. But so the 4 definitely, for me, I'll be selfish on this one. The 100 fly and the Paris S10. I'm really hoping that Faye can deliver what I think she can deliver. Men's 100 free. That's different. That's really different with the Chinese and the relays for the men's 4x1, 4x2, of course. 1500 free. That's going to be interesting. I've got a theory that one thing about the Olympics that I learned very early on, I wish I'd learnt it before I went to my first one in 2008, is how fast you have to go in the heats to get to the finals, which interrupts and changes your finals. And we need to look at how that lays out, because I, as always, somebody who will miss out purely because of the intensity of the heat that's needed to get to that final. So that preparation is going to be key for everyone.
Thing as well, I imagine, that the emotional investment of a heat at an Olympic Games is very different to an emotional investment, and that can be exhausting as well, can't it? So just managing that. Yeah,
you're right, Danielle. It's brutal. And it's looking at that ninth swimmer when they realise it. I had a look, actually. I was looking at the world rankings, the time rankings going into the last Olympics for the men's events, all the men's freestyle events, and nobody was outside the top 7 times in the world that year. The majority were top 4. So, and some were medalists and were slower in the final than they were in the heats. So, you know, it's for me, it was the 4 a.m. I remember noticing that it was about a 1 second drop off from heats to final average for the women's 400 IM at the Olympics. And Hannah and I used to always work on a 5 to 7 second drop off for events. You go, we know we can afford a 5 to 7. There's normally 7 to be truthful, and then be comfortable in. But the Olympics, it's gone. It doesn't allow that. I do think the American pressure pot really plays into their court on that one, and we need to simulate that somehow in the future. But maybe that's for another chat, Ian.
Yeah, no, maybe there's a good chat to be had there. But I think probably nearing the end of this one. Is that right, Charlie?
Yeah, I think so. But really appreciate both of your time, and I think that's been a really great conversation, covering quite a lot, from obviously Scottish athletes, the para side, and then looking ahead to what's going to be a really exciting summer as well. And hopefully some of our athletes will be there making their own memories in Paris.
They will.
Yeah, they definitely will. Sorry, Danielle. Yep, I share your optimism. So yeah, thanks again for coming on the podcast, Danielle and Patrick, and we'll see you both in London.
See you there.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you then, guys.
And that brings to an end a bumper first edition of the Aqua Pod. We hope you've enjoyed listening and are now in the mood for some fast racing in London. If you have any questions or suggestions for the podcast, please email us at marketing@scottishswimming.com. But in the meantime, thanks for listening.